The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary will have up to 5.5 minutes remaining for his remarks when the House next gets back to debate on the question, and then, of course, the usual 10 minutes for questions and comments. Mais maintenant, nous commençons avec...
And now we will start with statements by members.
La députée de Repentigny.
The Honourable Member for Repentigny. Mr. Speaker, in this first statement of this session, I would like to offer the Bloc Québécois' sincere condolences to the friends and family of our great Quebecer, Madame Lise Payette, feminist, minister, journalist, TV host, and sovereigntist. Lise Payette dedicated her life to building and emancipating Quebec. Over a media career that spanned 7 decades, she focused on Quebec women. She was at the very heart of political activity, and she was elected at the same time as René Lévesque. Madam Minister, and I insist on this title because since Madame Payette, who made the word feminist, worked full out in order to adapt the services of the state to the reality of women. With hindsight, we see that Madame Payette left us a more egalitarian and proud society. Thank you so much, Madame Lise Payette.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This past summer was a great one in Brampton East as we got an opportunity to reconnect with the constituents that sent us here in the first place. When I got an opportunity to knock on some doors, I talked about the Enhanced Canada Child Benefit, and it was positively received by the people in my riding, as they're using it for school supplies and other initiatives to help support kids. At the same time, the over 500,000 jobs that our government has created since we came into office in 2015 is being felt right home in my home riding, in my home region of the region of Peel. You know, the support that we're giving to post-secondary students and enhanced tuition relief is helping more students in my riding attend university and college. But that's not it, Mr. Speaker. This summer, I also had the opportunity to get married, and I want to thank my lovely wife, Kika, for her ongoing support. And we're all here because of our families, and we should never forget that. And moving on into 2019, all I can say is to the people of Brampton East, I'll never forget that you sent me to this place to be your voice. If I can be of any service, please don't hesitate to contact me. Hey.
The Honourable Member for Bruce Grey, Owen Sound.
Mr. Speaker, today all throughout Bruce Grey, Owen Sound, residents are performing good deeds to honour one of Bruce Grey's finest, Mr. Bob Wallace. It was 1 year ago today that we lost the lovable radio personality to complications from an undiagnosed case of leukemia. Bob was truly a community icon and touched numerous lives both on the air and off. On numerous mornings at precisely 8:08, Bob would present the time to his listeners. He would ask, "What does that spell?" Why, Bob, of course. 8:08 affectionately became known as Bob O'Clock. To honour Bob's memory and community legacy, the Doc radio station is asking everyone to participate in their 808 Good Deeds Day by performing a small good deed in their local community. Whatever the deed, be sure to post and use the hashtag 808 Good Deeds. Mr. Speaker, I encourage all residents of Bruce Grey, Owen Sound, all members of this House, and all Canadians to perform a good deed in memory of the one and only Bob Wallace. Hear, hear.
The Honourable Member for Lac Saint Louis.
Political giant. Quebec's Cree and Mohawk lost a friend, and Montreal's West Island lost a defender of ecological green space. J'ai rencontré John Chacha.
I met John Chacha during the 1981 election in Quebec. He was running for the third time to represent Mount Royal in the National Assembly. Recruited by Robert Bourassa in 1973 to negotiate the James Bay Agreement, John Chacha served in many key cabinet positions in Quebec City.
The Oka crisis, John Chacha promoted peace, respect, and understanding. He went as far as to lend his personal dock on the St. Lawrence so that the Mohawk of Ganawage could ferry medical supplies and food to their community when bridge access was no longer available. To John's son Mark, his grandsons Eric and Nicholas, and Norma, his wife of 35 years, please accept our condolences as well as our gratitude for a remarkable man who left a remarkable legacy.
Honourable Member for New Westminster Burnaby.
Mr. Speaker, Jagmeet Singh and I met in Burnaby last Friday with organizations and individuals who are in the center of the affordable housing crisis that we're experiencing, and families are more and more impacted. We met with Kevin and Nikita, who are trying to find an affordable apartment for their small family. They are worried, and with reason, Mr. Speaker. We met with Heather, and I spoke with her about her concerns. She's trying to find an affordable apartment for her family, including her disabled mother. She is weeks away from being homeless. She's losing sleep at night, she said, and certainly we understand. Who can blame her? And we met with Edward. Edward wakes up every morning to try to find an affordable apartment. He said to me that he, as a senior, worked all his life and never expected to be homeless, but in 13 days, Mr. Speaker, he will be without a home. Now, the Prime Minister says that Canadians can wait, but people in Burnaby can't wait. British Columbians can't wait. Canadians can't wait. We need to have affordable housing built now in Canada, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for London West.
Mr. Speaker, it's Science Literacy Week, a time to highlight Canada's outstanding scientists and showcase the excellence and diversity of their research. Mr. Speaker, our government understands the importance of science. We have unmuzzled scientists, appointed a chief science advisor, and made historic investments in research that will help boost our economy and benefit middle-class Canadians. It's part of our visions to strengthen science and nurture a culture of curiosity in Canada. On Wednesday, the Prime Minister's Science Fair will take place here in Centre Block, where students from across Canada will display their impressive experiments. It's these young people who are the future of science in Canada. I encourage all members of this House to support these students and to support and attend science literacy events happening in their ridings. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Excellent.
Honourable Member for Red Deer Lacombe.
Mr. Speaker, hunting, trapping and fishing are a way of life for many Canadians. It's part of our common heritage, beginning with First Nations and the Inuit, Métis, fur traders and voyageurs, and early settlers who all survived on what the land and the water provided. It's a way of life that has been passed down from these generations. Today, hunters, trappers and anglers are important partners in conservation and habitat stewardship, contributing millions each year to these efforts. In November of 2014, our Conservative government recognized this and passed the National Hunting, Trapping and Fishing Heritage Day Act. This day is celebrated on the third Saturday of September each year, and many Canadians celebrated this past Saturday by attending various hunting, trapping and fishing events across our great country. I would like to thank all of the organizations who work tirelessly to promote hunting, trapping, fishing and conservation. Your efforts are seen in the smiles of kids who catch their first fish, track their first moose, or release their first pheasant. Keep up the great work.
The Honourable Member for Châteauguay-Lacolle. Mr. Speaker, in July I went to Seoul in South Korea as co-chair of the Multi-Party Caucus on World Health in order to participate in an important meeting on tuberculosis. This visit, organized by Results Canada, had as a goal to talk to representatives of Stop TB Partnership Korea and members of the civil society about my experience in the fight against tuberculosis. Participants identified ways to make sure that the deadliest infectious disease on the planet is made the subject of a high-level meeting at the UN. The strategy proved effective as the fight against tuberculosis will take place September 26th. I am eager to see what commitments result from the discussions. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
For Ottawa West Nepean.
Mr. Speaker, today I stand to provide an update on the situation of Canadian citizen and Pussy Riot member Piotr Verzilov, who has left Russia and is currently being treated in Berlin. I am sure that I join many other members of this House in saying that we are very concerned by Mr. Verzilov's situation. I would like to assure all Canadians that our government is following this case very closely. The Minister of Foreign Affairs is seized of this case and has contacted Mr. Verzolov's family directly to pass on our wishes for a speedy recovery to Mr. Verzolov and to assure them that the Government of Canada is ready to provide assistance to him and his family. Our sincere thoughts are with Mr. Verzolov's family and friends at this difficult time. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honourable member for Calgary Signal Hill.
Mr. Speaker, this past weekend, the City of Calgary lost one of its pillars of the community, Mr. Clayton Riddell. Now, Clay, as he was better known, Mr. Speaker, was the founder of Paramount Resources. He was a co-owner of the Calgary Flames, but he was probably best known for his philanthropic initiatives across the country, Mr. Speaker. Included in that is his name on the University of Manitoba Faculty of Environment, Earth and Resources. He's also well known for one of the largest donations ever at Carleton University, where many of the people on the Hill today, Mr. Speaker, come from the graduate program in political management. Mr. Speaker, Mr. Riddell was one of those guys that whether you met him in his office or on the midway of the Calgary Stampede, he was Clay. Mr. Speaker, we will miss Mr. Riddell and his philanthropic initiatives, but I can say that for the many generations going forward, Canadians will benefit because of this outstanding Canadian. We express our condolences, Mr. Speaker, to his children, Sue and Jim, who are also leading Calgarian businessmen. Thank you.
The honourable member for Northwest Territories.
Mr. Speaker, this summer provided me with great opportunities to travel throughout the Northwest Territories to announce many important infrastructure projects of all sizes. Through the National Trade Corridors Fund, we invested $102.5 million towards the Mackenzie Valley Highway project. This includes construction of a bridge over the Great Bear River. From the Small Communities Fund, we invested over $1.1 million in the community of Betchico for their new 6-bay garage to support the community's water and wastewater management. With $180,000 in support from Enabling Accessibility Fund, 2 churches, a museum, and an Indigenous Council facility will be able to improve accessibility infrastructure for Canadians with disabilities with the installation of ramps and automated door openers. From nation-building projects like the Mackenzie Valley Highway to ensuring all Canadians can access the services they wish, support for infrastructure in my riding has never been better. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Louis Hébert. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Over the last elections, the Canadians could choose between conservative austerity and liberal investment in the economy, an economy that works for all. The results speak for themselves. More Canadians are working. There's less unemployment, the least unemployment in 40 years. The confidence of investors is high, and everywhere in the country, Mr. Speaker, our stimulation of the economy has led to more jobs. 1 million jobs have been created since our election, and the economy of Canada is growing the fastest among the G7.
The child benefit and the middle class tax cut, while there's more work to be done to ensure that every Canadian has a real and fair shot at success, real progress has been made, Mr. Speaker, and we're very proud of that. We'll continue to build on that. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honourable member for Kamloops, Thompson, Caribou.
Mr. Speaker, it was almost 3 weeks ago that Trans Mountain decision was rendered. Since that time, we have heard nothing but mixed messages from this government. As each day passes, the costs and losses mount. Where is the Liberal plan? Up to $400 million per day is loss of the economy. Thousands of BC workers sit idly by. Roughly $7 million in 11 BC community benefit agreements are threatened. The government has failed 43 First Nations in BC and Alberta who negotiated landmark agreements, jeopardizing life-changing economic opportunities and badly needed infrastructure. As each day passes, the Liberals continue to fail workers, communities, and Indigenous Canadians who saw hope and opportunity in this project. The reality is that now taxpayers are the shareholder of this monstrous Liberal boondoggle, and not 1 centimetre of pipeline has been built.
The Honourable Member for London North Centre.
Mr. Speaker, as it is the first time that I rise to speak during the fall session, I'd like to take advantage of that fact to thank once again the people of London Centre North for their trust and their support. I had the honour of spending my summer holiday in my riding and listening to people who have given me the great privilege to represent them in Parliament. Today, I'd also like to pay tribute to the dedicated first interveners who were on call day and night to ensure Canadian safety, and this nationwide.
For the RCMP O Division, London Police Service, and London Fire Department, to these dedicated professionals and all first responders across Canada, Mr. Speaker, I say thank you. Thank you for spending time away from your families and going above and beyond to make sure we are kept safe. Know that your sacrifices are deeply appreciated.
The Honourable Member.
L'Honorable Député de Berthier-Maskinongé.
The Honourable Member for Berthier-Maskinongé. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. On September 5th, a great lady in Quebec died. Lise Payette left behind an extraordinary legacy. With her words and her actions, Lise Payette contributed to building the Quebec nation and to helping women progress. Feminist, actress, author, TV host, Madame Payette was remarkable. A member of the Quebec National Assembly, she was minister 3 times, and her work for women is still felt today. She was the first to be Minister of the Status of Women. On behalf of my political party, I offer my most sincere condolences to the friends and family of Madame Payette.
The Honourable Member for Barrie-Innisfil.
Mr. Speaker, as I traveled around my riding of Barrie-Innisfil in the country this summer, I spoke to thousands of Canadians, and let's just say if this Liberal government was hoping to avoid negative interactions this summer, all Canadians got was a summer of failures. The Liberals failed this summer on issues that matter to Canadians, like ethics. Pipelines have been reduced to pipe dreams. NAFTA has gone south along with Canadian jobs and investment. The talk among Canada's veterans and the many veterans who call Central Ontario home is how the Liberals, some of them who serve themselves, have failed them or worse yet, lied to them. Conservatives have heard loud and clear this summer what matters to Canadians and not what matters to the Prime Minister or his insiders. This session, Conservatives will expose the summer of failure and continue our work ahead of 2019 that puts Canadians first, puts people before government, and makes sure that our leader becomes the next Prime Minister of Canada.
Honourable Member for Oakville North Burlington. Order.
Mr. Speaker, Terry Fox, a Canadian hero. After losing his leg to osteogenic sarcoma, he embarked on a cross-country marathon of hope to raise money for cancer research. When Terry could no longer run, Canadians took up the mantle. Yesterday, my friend and colleague from Scarborough Agincourt joined me in Oakville as Canadians participated in the 38th annual Terry Fox Run to honour and remember loved ones. The run would not be possible without the enthusiasm, compassion, and commitment of our volunteers. Carol Dalby, whose son David survived the same cancer as Terry Fox at 8 years old, has volunteered with the Oakville Run for over 30 years. For 3 decades, 3-time cancer survivor Ralph Robinson has devoted countless hours volunteering for the Oakville Run. As chair of Oakville's Terry Fox Run, I would like to say thank you to all those who carry on Terry's legacy across Canada and around the world.
Alors, j'ai l'honneur d'informer la Chambre que le...
I have the honor to inform the House that we have received from the Chief Electoral Office that Mr. Martel
Monsieur le Président, j'ai l'honneur.
Mr. Speaker, I have the honor of presenting Richard Martel, member for Chicoutimi-Le who has affirmed solemnly and now claims the right to sit in this House.
Richard Martel, member of the electoral district of Chicoutimi-Le who has made an affirmation, signed the roll, and now claims the right to take his seat. Hear, hear. Yeah.
L'honorable député prend son siège.
Let the honourable member take his seat.
Order. Questions orales. Oral questions. The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, Canadians watched for the last 2 years and thought to themselves, there's no way the Prime Minister could possibly fail any more this summer than he has been for the past. And what did the Prime Minister say? Hold my beer. His carbon tax coalition is in shambles. The U.S. went ahead and negotiated a new deal with Mexico while Canada was on the sidelines, and there's still no plan to deal with illegal border crossers. But the Prime Minister's biggest failure was the Trans Mountain Pipeline. The courts ruled that he failed to execute the process, and he has no plan to restart it. Does the Prime Minister understand that his failures are hurting Canadians all over the country?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, allow me to take a moment first as we return to this place to welcome an entirely new cohort of pages to the House. Thank you, young people. Mr. Speaker, over the past 3 years, we've seen the lowest unemployment in 40 years. We've seen the creation of over 500,000 new full-time jobs, the fastest growth in the G7 last year. And on top of that, Mr. Speaker, by the end of next year, the average middle-class family will be receiving $2,000 more in their bank accounts because of this government than they did under the previous Conservative government. We're continuing with our plan for the middle class.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, this Prime Minister has chased away billions of dollars of investment in our energy sector, and he used a variety of ways to do it. He cancelled Energy East, which would have seen Western Canadian oil brought to Eastern markets, displacing foreign oil. He's brought in a ban on pipelines in Bill C-69, and his carbon tax is chasing away investment from all around the world. And when it comes to Trans Mountain, the court was very clear. The judge ruled that, quote, that his government's efforts fell well short of the mark, and that he did not adequately discharge his duties. How could the Prime Minister fail so badly on this?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, for 10 years, the Conservative government under Stephen Harper had a single focus: to support the oil sands by getting our resources to new markets other than the United States. They failed. They couldn't get any of our resources to new markets because they refused to accept that the only way to move forward on energy projects is to respect Indigenous peoples and to defend the environment at the same time. That is exactly what we've been working on for 3 years. That's what we're going to continue to work on. The Trans Mountain project is in the national interest, and we're going to get it built in the right way.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Well, Mr. Speaker, let's look at the facts. Before this Prime Minister took office, you didn't need an act of Parliament to get a pipeline built. Americans were trying to put their money into Canada. Now this Prime Minister is writing a check to buy them out of the energy sector. And the facts are also clear. Under the previous Conservative government, 4 major pipelines were built: the Enbridge Alberta Clipper, the Trans-Canada Keystone, Kinder Morgan Anchor Loop, Enbridge Line 9B Reversal, all approved and built under a Conservative government. His policies have failed, and the judge was very clear. He failed to get this job done.
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, the Alberta oil industry, indeed Canadians, know well that our priority is getting our resources to new markets other than the United States. We get a discount of about $15 billion every year because we are trapped to the American market. We need to get our resources to new markets safely, securely, and that's where the previous government failed. We are moving forward in respect and in partnership with Indigenous peoples, moving forward being serious about environmental science and sustainability, because we know getting these pipelines built the right way is what matters to all Canadians.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Well, Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister's summer of failure wasn't just about pipelines. It also included his lack of a plan to deal with the illegal border crosser crisis. For months, the Prime Minister has been attacking as un-Canadian anyone who criticizes his lack of action. He also claimed that the flood of illegal crossers would have no impact on the processing times of lawful applicants. We now know that wasn't true. In fact, the Immigration and Refugee Board says, and I quote, projected wait times are now expected to increase from the current 20 months. Does the Prime Minister think that his own officials are un-Canadian?
Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, over the past year and a half, we have seen people crossing from the American side in greater numbers, which represents a challenge. That's why we have invested in the necessary measures to process and evaluate anyone crossing the border irregularly, to ensure that we continue to apply our entirety of our immigration rules, our refugee rules, and our security rules to them. This is something we will continue to do. We have lots more work to do, but we are on the right track on this, and Canadians can be reassured that our immigration system remains secure and strong.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition. Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister also failed to stop the number of illegal crossers at the borders, and this has serious consequences. The numbers have increased, and more than 95% of them came through Quebec. Now the figures are showing that people following the regular process will have to wait even longer because of the increase in the number of illegal border crossers. Quebecers and Canadians want to know why the Prime Minister has failed to protect our border. The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, Conservatives want to instill concern and worry among Canadians. We want to reassure Canadians that our immigration system is being fully implemented. We are fully verifying the backgrounds of people coming in. We are applying our immigration system to the letter. We can rest assured that we have a good system that is serving Canadians, and we are continuing to invest more resources into this system. The Honourable Member for Rimouski-Nejet-Témiscouata-Les-Basques. Mr. Speaker, the dairy producers I met with this summer are facing serious sacrifices under CETA, and now they're having trouble making ends meet. What they're concerned about is that the Liberals are saying they're going to be protecting supply management, but they're also talking about concessions at the same time. They heard the same promises under the previous Conservatives. I'd like a clear answer, Mr. Speaker. Do the Liberals intend to fully protect supply management under the NAFTA negotiations? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, as people know, we are continuing our work as part of to renegotiate NAFTA. We have been very clear. We are going to protect supply management, and we are going to ensure that our economy, citizens, and benefit from a good agreement. Not just any agreement, a good agreement. The new NAFTA agreement we will make sure, be a good agreement for Canadians. That is what Canadians expect from us.
NDP leader Jagmeet Singh was in Burnaby South this weekend talking with people who can't find affordable, quality housing. One of these people, a senior named Edward, hasn't been able to find a place and will be homeless by the end of this month. Liberals acknowledge we have a housing crisis, but instead of acting to fix this crisis, they are following the Conservative example and holding back funding for housing until after the next election. Will the Liberal government stop telling Canadians like Edward to wait and invest in housing now and not in 2 years?
Honourable Prime Minister.
On the contrary, Mr. Speaker, our investments in infrastructure and housing across this country are making a real difference for Canadians, and we are indeed moving forward on something the Conservatives never did. We see a federal role for housing. That's why we've put together a $40 billion plan to invest in housing, a national housing strategy that is going to deliver for Canadians right across the country. We understand the pressures faced by Canadians in our large cities, in small communities right across the country, and this government is stepping up to help them.
Member for Timmins, James Bay.
Speaker, no child in Canada should ever have to beg for the right to quality education in a safe and comfy school. And the children of Saskatchewan are here today to tell this Prime Minister that they're done with the begging. They are tired of the positive words and the broken promises. They are tired of the squalor and the flooding and the children being medevaced out when they're sick. So to the Prime Minister, let's just cut to the chase. What is the financial commitment he will make today to ensure that we get those children off that floodplain and into a safe and comfy school that they deserve?
Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, no relationship is more important than that with Indigenous peoples, and that's why from the very beginning we invested $8.6 billion over the coming years in making sure that we move towards parity in education. In working with the community of Saskatchewan, an interim solution has been found to allow classes to start this week while a longer-term solution is identified. We're supporting the community's request for a long-term modular school solution, and we will be working with them to expedite the project. Saskatchewan students remain our priority as we determine next steps, with further updates on the solutions expected later this week. I thank the member opposite for his question.
For Timmins, James Bay.
An interim solution. You know, this past week, the Prime Minister berated First Nation leaders for wasting his time, and he said it wasn't reconciliation. If he talks to the children of Saskatchewan, they will tell him that positive words isn't going to build them a school. It takes political will. And in their short life, they have seen endless broken promises from government. So now we have the promise of another Band-Aid. So let's cut to the chase. If he won't cost out the price of those Band-Aid solutions, give us the timeline. When is he going to get those children off that floodplain and into a safe and comfy school? Give us that answer now and stop wasting our time.
Order, I remind the honourable member for Timmins, James Bay, to direct his comments to the chair. The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, the road to reconciliation is a long one, but there are immediate steps we can and must be taking, which we are taking. We recognize the need to invest right now in emerging mental health crises, in housing needs, in education needs, to help Indigenous students and people right across the country, while at the same time we move forward towards greater rights and recognition, towards greater partnership, towards greater autonomy for Indigenous peoples in this country. That is something that we are on together as a journey. It is one in which we are partners and which we work with respect and openness.
The Honourable Member for Richmond Arthabaska. Mr. Speaker, the number of illegal border crossings remains problematic. While the Liberals are attempting to imply that they have the situation under control, the data is showing the opposite. We've seen an increase in the number of illegal entries over the past 2 months, July and August, including 95% in Quebec alone. This is another failure by the Liberal government and by our Prime Minister. Liberals must take tangible steps to prevent illegal border crossers. This has been going on for 2 years. When will we see a plan? And when will we see an end to these failures by the Prime Minister?
The Honourable Minister of Border Security.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, our government has a clear plan to address border crossers. We have invested over $173 million to improve border security and to speed up processing claims. And contrary to the remarks of my colleague across the way, in the last few months, we have seen a decrease in the number of asylum seekers that are crossing the border irregularly, including a drop, Mr. Speaker, for the month of August of 70% over what we witnessed last year.
The Honourable Member for Richmond, Arthabaska. Mr. Speaker, the data that I gave come from his own department, so we didn't invent anything. That's in addition to Trans Mountain, an out-of-control deficit, NAFTA, a lack of ethics and transparency. Let's be clear, these failures by the Prime Minister are having an impact on Canadians. Fewer jobs, fewer opportunities, investments fleeing the country, and out-of-control spending at the expense of our children and grandchildren. Canadians deserve better, Mr. Speaker. Is the Prime Minister aware of these failures and the impact they're having on Canadians?
The Minister of Finance.
It's very important to have accurate figures, Mr. Speaker. We are in a situation where unemployment is among the lowest it's been in the past 40 years. What that means is that there are more and more Canadians working. More than 500,000 people are working full-time now as compared to before. This is a growth rate that is higher than in the G7, and we will continue to improve the situation for the middle class for all Canadians.
Honourable Member for Milton.
Mr. Speaker, it was interesting in his questions and his answers today. The Prime Minister had a little slip of the tongue, and he referred to Canada's oil industry as Alberta's oil industry. And I can tell you something, Mr. Speaker, it is all Canadian resource families that are feeling this summer on failure. What Canadian resource families want is they want real leadership. Leadership, people who work hard to get the policy done so that they can go out and build the pipeline. What is the plan that the Prime Minister has? Or is he just going to say to them, it's going to be another fall season of failure?
Honourable Minister of Finance.
Mr. Speaker, we move forward with the Trans Mountain Pipeline expansion because we know how critically important it is to Canadians. We know how important it is for our economy. We are not going to take lessons from the previous government who failed to get resources to international markets. We know that 99% of our resources go to the United States. We must create international access for our resources, and that's exactly what we're going to do promptly by listening and having meaningful consultation with Indigenous Canadians and considering environmental impacts that are so important.
The Honourable Member for Milton.
Mr. Speaker, I think my favorite word of the summer was de-risking. And that's exactly what the Minister of Finance said that the purchase of the Trans Mountain Pipeline would do for this project. It would de-risk it. Didn't really work out for them very well, did it, Mr. Speaker? I'm glad the Minister of Finance recognizes the importance of the pipeline to our economy. But I have a very simple question for him. He had a summer of failure, too. What is his plan to get this pipeline built?
The Honourable Minister of Finance.
Mr. Speaker, the court has been very clear. We need to move forward promptly without unnecessary delay, and that is exactly what we're going to do. We will not take lessons from the previous failed government. What we will do is move forward, having meaningful engagement with Indigenous Canadians, ensuring that we deal with environmental risks in the appropriate way, giving confidence that this project can go forward so we have access to international markets. The previous government was unable to do that. We have resolved to make sure we do it in the right way.
The Order. The Honourable Member for Lakeland.
Mr. Speaker, the facts. In 2014, the Supreme Court ruled on consulting First Nations. In June 2016, the Federal Court of Appeal affirmed the same. On November 1st, 2016, the Liberal-appointed panel that consulted First Nations on Trans Mountain reported to Cabinet, and 28 days later, Cabinet approved the expansion. The Prime Minister and all those Liberals repeatedly said their process would survive a court challenge. But 2 years later, on August 30th, the courts ruled the Liberals failed. After the summer of total failure, what is the plan to get the Trans Mountain extension?
Minister of Natural Resources.
Mr. Speaker, we understand that the building of the Trans Mountain Pipeline expansion project is in the national interest. We will not follow the failed policies of the Conservative government. We're going to meaningfully consult with Indigenous people, make sure we're engaging with them in two-way dialogue that finds accommodation for the concerns where it's possible to do so. We're going to look after the environment and making sure that we're meeting our environmental obligations. We're going to move forward on this project in the right way to build so those...
Order. I remind members that it's the responsibility of the Speaker to try to ensure that every member can be heard here. And therefore, I'd ask other members not to interrupt and not to speak when someone else is speaking. It's simple respect. It is certainly worth the dignity of this chamber and our responsibility to Canadians. The honourable member for Lakeland.
Mr. Speaker, 4 new pipelines built under Conservatives, and the reality is the Liberals failed on the consultation on Trans Mountain. They failed to give certainty to Kinder Morgan that it could be built. They promised a law and failed to deliver. They failed to find a private sector investor for Trans Mountain. They failed to get shovels in the ground this summer. And now the Liberals have failed for 3 weeks to tell Canadians their plan to respond to the court's ruling and to get the Trans Mountain expansion built. They killed thousands of jobs. They've spent billions of tax dollars on a pipeline they can't expand. Is this all part of the Prime Minister's plan to phase out the oil sands?
Honourable Minister of Natural Resources.
Mr. Speaker, for almost a decade, the previous government failed to build a single pipeline to expand our non-U.S. market. 99% of our oil is landlocked because they failed to explore and expand their global market. We are committed to making sure that we follow the highest standard that Canadians expect us to follow when it comes to consulting with Indigenous peoples, when it comes to protecting the environment. We will do and build this pipeline in the right way, Mr. Speaker.
Good job.
Député de Jonquière.
The honourable member for Jonquière. The contribution by dairy, poultry and egg producers is essential for the Quebec economy and represents some 92,000 jobs. Unfortunately, since 2015, the government has just been perpetuating the Conservative legacy by sacrificing these producers in trade agreements like the Trans-Pacific Partnership. Supply management is more than an industry. It's about our regional way of life, the way we use the land, and our family farms. When will the Liberals commit to adequately protecting our producers? And when will they stop signing bad agreements?
Well, Minister of Agriculture.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I appreciate my honourable colleague's question, and I can assure her that we have and will continue to support supply management and our farmers in this system. The Prime Minister, myself, and many other ministers have indicated quite clearly that we have and will support the supply management system. It's important to note, Mr. Speaker, we are the party that fought to implement supply management, and I can assure my honourable colleague we're the government that's going to protect it.
Honourable member for Essex.
Supporting means no increase in quota. Canadians spent the summer worried about their jobs under steel and aluminum tariffs, a shaky NAFTA, and repeated threats from the White House. This is especially true in my riding of Essex. This government says they're fighting to help Canadians like auto workers and supply management farm families. If that's true, how can their first piece of legislation this fall be the ratification of the job-killing CPTPP? Canadians are buying the bogus argument that this is good for Canada and working people when the deal will cost us 58,000 jobs. Will this government do the right thing and take the CPTPP off the table?
Honourable Minister of International Trade Diversification.
No. And we would want the honourable member to know that trade means growth and growth means jobs, quality jobs for Canadians. And as we expand our export markets, we expand the possibilities for these Canadians to have the chance to sell to these markets, mostly small and medium-sized enterprise. We are looking for swift passage of this important legislation, and we hope the New Democrats will cooperate.
The Honourable Member for Charlebourg, Saint-Charles. Mr. Speaker, many illegal migrants don't show up for their interviews, and CBSA officers are being muzzled by senior management, even though they're very concerned about cuts to security stages. They're being told to skip stages. And now Canadians are convinced that the Prime Minister doesn't care about their security. They know that we have a plan, but do they have a plan? Does the government have a plan?
Border security.
Mr. Speaker, let me assure this House that our government will never compromise the safety of Canadians. Irregular border crossers are thoroughly screened, and they do not get a free ticket to remain in Canada. We on this side of the House will always stand to protect Canada's system and are taking concrete measures to do so. And it's important to recall that the Conservatives would like to talk a good game, but they cut nearly $400 million for border security measures when they were in office.
The Honourable Member for Charlebourg, Saint-Charles. Mr. Speaker, the Minister has just shown up and perhaps he doesn't have updated information. We know that the CBSA is being called to cut stages in the security process, and only a handful of these illegal migrants have been deported. The new mandate letter doesn't contain any specific directives to resolve the crisis. So how can the minister resolve the problem without clear direction from the Prime Minister? We have a plan. Do they have a plan?
Minister of Border Security.
Mr. Speaker, I've received very explicit instructions to lead our government's response to irregular migration. We remain unwavering in our commitment to protect the safety of Canadians. As I've already stated, we've invested $173 million to replace some of the resources that were taken away by the previous government. Let me assure this House that everyone ordered removed has been given due process, and as all orders can be challenged through various levels of appeal, but once those legal avenues have been exhausted, individuals are expected to respect our laws and leave Canada. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honourable Member for Calgary Nose Hill.
Mr. Speaker, the minister has gotten up and talked about the hundreds of millions of dollars that this government has spent on illegal border crossers. Yet, from January and August in 2017, the numbers were 13,221. January to August this year, it was 14,125. The problem is getting worse. There's only one way this is going to get solved. That's by closing the loophole in the Safe Third Country Agreement. Right. Has the minister done anything of import, like asking the Americans to close the loophole in this agreement?
Honourable Minister of Border Security.
Mr. Speaker, as the Minister for Border Security, I have been tasked with leading the engagement with the United States on the Safe Third Country Agreement. To that end, I have communicated with Secretary Nielsen and asked that government to engage with us on this important issue. There have been some discussions to date, and that will continue.
Honourable Member. The Honourable Member for Calgary Nose Hill.
I'll summarize that as no. Mr. Speaker, the member for Scarwood-Gilwood said the following. People who have come to the conclusion that these people, illegal border crossers, are not refugees and they should be returned sooner rather than later. A Conservative government would close the loophole in the Safe Third Country Agreement and remove those expeditiously who do not have a legal reason to be in Canada. Mr. Speaker, that's very simple. It's what Canadians want. That is a Canadian thing to ask for. When will this government close the loophole in the Safe Third Country Agreement?
Honourable Minister of Border Security.
Mr. Speaker, Canada has a long tradition and proud tradition of providing protection to those who need it most by providing refuge to the world's most vulnerable people. And at the same time, we must ensure the security of our communities and the integrity of our border. The Immigration and Refugee Protection Act requires the ongoing review of all designated third countries to ensure that the conditions that led to their designation continue. And as I have already indicated, I have reached out to Secretary Nielsen to discuss issues related to irregular migration and the shared border, including ways in which we might enhance the Safe Third Country Agreement.
Honourable Member for Saint-Hyacinthe-Bagotte. Mr. Speaker, supply management works. Martin Joubert and Émilie Courchaine of Upton's Ferme de la Carrière have told me how important supply management is to their survival. If supply management were to collapse, they would lose their farm. Farmers like Martin are concerned, and for good reason. The NDP will continue to fight for people just like Martin and his family. The Prime Minister told farmers that he wouldn't make any concessions on supply management. So when will he make good on his promise?
Honourable Minister of Agriculture.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And again, I appreciate my honourable colleague's question. And I indicate to her and the House that we are the party that fought to implement supply management. We knew the value of supply management. We're the government that's going to defend supply management. The Prime Minister, Minister of Foreign Affairs and other ministers, including myself, and indicated quite clearly we are going to defend supply management. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honourable Member for North Island, Powell River.
Mr. Speaker, this summer I met Pat, a woman in her 80s who ended up homeless after battling a life-threatening illness. She ended up in a hotel, which cost $2,000 a month. It costs more than her monthly pension. Her loved ones did everything they could to help with medication, with food and essentials, but what she needed was a home she could afford on her pension. When will the Liberals actually do something to ensure that seniors like Pat don't go through something like this again?
Honourable Minister of Social Development.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm proud and pleased to be able to answer this question. We have invested resources which seniors had long awaited for in our last budgets. We have invested in the guaranteed income supplement. We have moved the age of eligibility to old age security back from 67 to 65, thereby avoiding 100,000 seniors from falling into severe poverty. We are investing in a 40 billion plus housing strategy, which is going to give a safe and affordable home to hundreds of thousands of Canadians in the next 10 years. I invite my colleague to be in touch with me so I can demonstrate to her how effective our policies have been and will be.
Honourable Member for Toronto Danforth.
Mr. Speaker, we all have a responsibility to keep our children safe and to protect them from becoming victims of child sexual abuse and exploitation online. When this imagery is posted online, it continues the victimization of the most vulnerable members of our society. Can the Minister please tell us what he is doing to help victims and to remove this horrendous imagery from the Internet?
Public safety.
Speaker, online sexual exploitation is an absolutely horrific crime. We are fighting it on many fronts. For example, we're investing $4.1 million in the Canadian Centre for Child Protection to help identify victims, improve support services, and develop high-tech tools to shut criminals down. A further $19 million is strengthening the RCMP's National Child Exploitation Coordination Centre, and we're working through the G7, the Five Eyes, and Internet service providers to get dangerous, offensive material off the Internet as rapidly as possible and keep it from going on in the first place.
Honourable Member for Louis Saint Laurent. Mr. Speaker, the Liberal carbon tax will hit Canadian families hard. And yet, the government is persisting with it. This summer in Ontario and Alberta, the governments there decided to say no to these Liberal threats. Alberta withdrew, and the federal government is still barreling forward. They're doing absolutely nothing to help small businesses who are also going to be hit hard by the Liberal carbon tax. Why is the Liberal government insisting on directly attacking our small businesses and all Canadian families with this tax? The Honourable Minister of the Environment. Mr. Speaker, we have a plan to grow our economy and protect the environment. We created over 500,000 jobs and reduced our greenhouse gas emissions at the same time. We are taking concrete steps, but once again, I want to know, what is the Conservative plan to tackle climate change and to grow the economy in a greener fashion?
Honourable Member for Carleton.
The Prime Minister promised that his deficit would be tiny, temporary, and $10 billion. It was none of those three things. In fact, it's now 3 times what he promised, and according to his own finance department, it will continue until the year 2045. The Prime Minister has failed to keep his promise, and he has failed to indicate when the budget will finally be balanced. Will he tell us today?
Honourable Minister of Finance.
Speaker, we promised Canadians that we would move forward on a plan to invest in Canadians, to invest in Canadian families, to invest in the middle class. That is exactly what we've done. Coming on 3 years, what's happened as a result of that plan? Those investments have put more money in Canadians' pockets. family of four, an average family of four, middle-class family, in 2019 will be $2,000 better off than they were in 2015. That's the kind of impact that we've made on families, which has made a measurable impact on our economy in a positive way. We will continue to invest in Canadian families. We will continue to have confidence in our future.
The honourable member for Carleton.
Well, that's not true. We know that the average Canadian family is paying $800 more in income tax, and that's even before the carbon tax and the higher payroll taxes take effect. The question was about the deficit. In fact, by 2021, only 3 years from now, the government will be spending more on debt interest than we currently spend on health transfers. That's higher taxes in exchange for absolutely nothing.
Wow.
Will the finance minister tell us when will the budget be balanced?
Honourable Minister of Finance.
Mr. Speaker, I will continue to tell Canadians that we know that it's critically important that we invest in a positive future in our country. Those investments have made an enormous difference for Canadians. And as I said, the facts are clear. We put in place measures that not only lowered middle-class taxes, but they helped families with the Canada Child Benefit that's made an enormous difference. So that measurable difference, that's making a difference for our economy, that's going to allow us to continue to be effective in terms of helping middle-class families. That will continue to be our agenda.
Honourable member for Carleton.
The government's agenda is not only higher taxes on the middle class today, it's higher taxes down the road to pay the wealthy bondholders and bankers that own Canada's out-of-control national debt. Already $60 billion in additional debt under this government. Another 25 years of deficits, according to his own finance department. Will his fall economic update include a deadline for a balanced budget, and will he tell us today what that deadline is?
Honourable Minister of Finance.
Mr. Speaker, we will not take any lessons from the party that left us with the lowest growth rate since the Great Depression. What we are continuing to focus on is how we can grow our economy. We know that puts us in a better position for tomorrow. We know that our debt as a function of our GDP is going down over time. So we're doing, in a fiscally responsible way, what we promised we'd do. Make life better for middle-class Canadians, put more money in their pockets so they can raise their families and have a successful and optimistic view of the future.
The honourable member for Victoria.
I've been getting calls from so many Canadians and constitutional experts deeply concerned about the reckless erosion of our Charter of Rights and Freedoms. These people are outraged that a Premier has casually promised to repeatedly use the notwithstanding clause to override our constitutional rights whenever he disagrees with the courts. So, Mr. Speaker, will the Liberals support my motion in the Justice Committee to meet and discuss how we can end the reckless erosion of our Charter? And will the Prime Minister commit today to never use the notwithstanding clause?
Bravo. Honourable Minister of Intergovernmental Affairs.
Mr. Speaker, obviously committees are free to determine their own agenda. Mr. Speaker, our government believes that Canadians expect all orders of government to uphold their rights and freedoms as guaranteed by the Charter and respect the rule of law. The rights and freedoms guaranteed by the Charter are of utmost importance in our society, and our government will always stand up and defend them. The notwithstanding clause is an extraordinary part of the Constitution that should only be used in the most exceptional of cases, and the Government of Ontario's disappointing decision to use this clause, we think Ontarians will ultimately decide on the actions of their provincial government.
The honourable member for Trois-Rivières. Mirabel Chicoine and hundreds of other victims of pyrrhotite who are caught in a regulatory grey zone have no access to any financial aid. Why? Because up to now, both Conservatives and Liberals have refused to solve the problem by funding a scientific study on pyrrhotite. So Ms. Chicoine, like many other families who have tried to sell their houses, risks losing a lifetime's worth of investment. Mr. Speaker, will the Liberals play politics at the expense of victims, or will they announce now a solution to this ongoing problem? Honourable Minister of Economic Development.
In terms of ensuring consistency in design and construction of new buildings in Canada, the National Research Council of Canada, in partnership with University Laval, is leading a Canada-wide research development and technology transfer project to resolve the outstanding issues raised by the member opposite. The project will really look at issues to ensure Canadian safety and minimize future economic impact of the issues raised by the member opposite as well. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.
Member for Caribou, Prince George.
Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister's summer of failure included his close childhood friend and most trusted minister being found guilty of breaking ethics laws. Now, the Prime Minister stood in this House time and time again, telling Canadians how proud he was of his friend's decision to award a lucrative contract to close Liberal friends and his own family. Now that the Ethics Commissioner has found his good friend guilty, will the Prime Minister continue to turn a blind eye, or will he set aside friendship, do the right thing, and fire his morally challenged friend?
Honourable Minister of Intergovernmental and Northern Affairs.
Mr. Speaker, as public office holders, all of us have an obligation to follow the Act. And when there is uncertainty about the interpretation of the Act, Mr. Speaker, it's our responsibility to work with the Commissioner's office to get that clarity. While the Commissioner found in this case that there was no financial benefit and no preferential treatment given, he said I should have consulted his office prior to making the decision. Mr. Speaker, I accept the Commissioner's finding, and obviously I'll work with his office on any future action.
Very good.
The Honourable Member for Thornhill.
Mr. Speaker, in their summer of failure, this Liberal government and its ministers reminded us that they're just as willing to break their own rules as the Conflict of Interest Act. Caught in big-ticket cash-for-access fundraisers, the Prime Minister promised strict new rules, but today we learn that registered lobbyists are still buying their way into exclusive Liberal fundraising events to mingle with ministers and PMO power brokers. Mr. Speaker, why doesn't the Prime Minister stop the double talk and simply order an end to this highly unethical practice?
Modify institutions.
Mr. Speaker, we are taking concrete action to improve our already strong and robust rules around political fundraising events. We are proud that the Liberal Party is already disclosing more information about their fundraisers. However, Mr. Speaker, what we don't know is who is attending high-ticket cost fundraisers from the other side, Mr. Speaker. Like, what about the $1,000 fundraiser that was held on February 28, 2018 by the Conservatives? Or how about the $1,550 fundraiser that was held on May 25th, 2017 by the Conservatives? Who's attending those fundraisers, Mr. Speaker?
The honourable member for Beauport, de Beaupré, Île-d'Orléans, Charlevoix. We've learned that the Liberals broke their own fundraising rules. They allowed lobbyists to pay to have access to ministers several times. Ministers and the Prime Minister have been caught by the Ethics Commissioner, but they continue to roll out the red carpet for lobbyists who try to influence their decisions. They think that laws are for others, but not for them. Mr. Speaker, why are the Liberals so corrupt? Why are they continuing their summer of failure? The Honourable Minister. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. As I said in English, we are proud on this House, this side of the House, that we have this information. But we do have information about what's happened on our fundraisers, but we don't know who is attending the Conservative Party fundraisers. There are a lot of events that are held in secret, and we don't know who attends.
Honourable Member for Niagara Centre.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, we know that more than two-thirds of more than 90 Indigenous languages still spoken in Canada are in danger of being lost. The loss of these languages were the intentional result of past government policies like residential schools. I was pleased, Mr. Speaker, to see the Prime Minister and the Minister of Canadian Heritage and Multiculturalism are following through on their promise and have put in the mandate letter instructions to deliver on Indigenous Languages Act, co-developed with Indigenous peoples. Mr. Speaker, can the Minister of Canadian Heritage and Multiculturalism please update the House of Commons on the government's progress on this file?
The
Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I'd like to thank the member from Niagara Centre for his question. As he knows, no relationship is more important to our government than the one with Indigenous people, and we continue to engage with First Nations, Métis, Inuit peoples on this important issue. Et ce projet de loi, Monsieur le Président, va nous...
This bill will allow us to preserve, promote, and revitalize Aboriginal languages. This is an absolute priority for me and for the Prime Minister and the entire government.
L'honorable député.
The Honourable Member for Chicoutimi-Le-Fjord. Mr. Speaker, I remember that during the 2015 election campaign, the Prime Minister had said that no veteran should have to fight the government for the support that they need and deserve. But a few months ago, he told a former soldier that he was asking too much of the government. And today, we've learned that $372 million that had been earmarked for our veterans have been sitting idle in government coffers. Why this other broken promise, and why can't the Prime Minister respect our veterans? The Honourable Minister of Veterans.
Side of the House, let me congratulate the member on his first question during question period. Let me also say that ensuring veterans receive all the benefits that they have earned is our top priority. Our benefits are demand-driven, so whether it's 10 or whether it's 10,000 veterans, they will receive the benefits to which they deserve. And they are based on estimates, and this process guarantees that whether a veteran comes forward this year or next year or the year after, the money is always there for them. We know that because in 3 years, this government has invested $10 billion in benefits and services for our veterans. And let me remind that member on that side of the House, Mr. Speaker, that in 3 years that the Harper Conservatives did nothing but cut benefits and cuts.
Order. I remind the member for Durham that ensuring that all members can speak when it's their turn is a responsibility not only of the Speaker, but of all of us.
Honourable Member for Longueuil-Saint-Hubert. Mr. Speaker, Marianne Simard has a serious form of cancer. She's a mother from Longueuil whose life has been completely turned upside down by this diagnosis, but the Liberal government is only giving her 15 weeks of EI to recover. It doesn't make any sense. And this is despite repeated promises from the Prime Minister and the Minister of Families. This is despite 600,000 signatures on a petition simply asking the government to keep its promise. Is there a minister in this House who can look Marianne in her eyes and admit that they let her down? Or will they finally do the right thing and increase those 15 weeks? The Honourable Minister of Social Development. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I thank my colleague for his question. He knows well that this government was elected on a promise of helping and supporting middle-class families and those working hard to join it. In particular, those who may be suffering for reasons out of their control. That's why in 2015 we've made significant changes to increase flexibility of the EI system, and I would be very happy, Mr. Speaker, to provide more details. I can assure the member that the current EI system is working for everyone. The Honourable Member for Nickel Belt. Mr. Speaker, this summer I had the pleasure of making a significant announcement in my riding. Our Liberal government will be improving a significant grade crossing in the city of Cap-Réole. Not only will this investment improve safety for pedestrians and drivers, it will also allow trains to move faster, and it will reduce wait times at the Yonge Street crossing. In light of this important announcement, could the Honourable Minister of Transport update this House about our engagement toward rail safety? The Honourable Minister. I'd like to thank the member for Nickel Belt for his question and for his hard work in his riding. In fact, he is the one who approached me about this particular grade crossing. We recognize that rail safety is important for communities such as Cap-Réole, and we are very happy to be able to upgrade that grade crossing. It's important to minimize the risk of collision and to have traffic flow more smoothly. As you know, Mr. Speaker, rail safety is my priority.
Member for Aurora, Oak Ridges, Richmond Hill.
Mr. Speaker, under this Prime Minister, Canada Canada's position in the world has been diminished, and our ability to deliver on our defence commitments has been undermined by politics. Purchasing used CF-18s from the Australians will not give us capability, will be cost prohibitive, and frankly humiliating when we should be reassuring our allies in a time of unprecedented global instability. Will the Prime Minister finally cancel this flawed purchase and equip our pilots with the aircraft they need to get the job done on the world?
Honorable. Hello.
Order.
Order. The Honourable Minister of National Defence. Order.
Mr. Speaker, while the previous Harper Conservatives cut billions from defence as part of the Deficit Reduction Action Plan, Mr. Speaker, with our new government's defence policy, we are increasing the defence budget by 70%, Mr. Speaker. While the previous government closed Veterans Affairs offices, Mr. Speaker, we reopened them. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
L'honorable.
The Honourable Member from Mirabel. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. During the by-election in Lac-Saint-Jean, the Prime Minister had promised that he would fully protect supply management with the TPP, but we know what happened. He didn't do that. The same thing happened with the Chicoutimi by-election. He said that he would fully protect supply management in NAFTA, but we know what happened. Fully is no longer the operational word. There are elections coming up. Will the Prime Minister finally grow a spine and stand up to the American government?
Honourable Minister of Agriculture.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I can indicate clearly to this House, the Prime Minister, all the Cabinet Ministers and myself, and indicated quite clearly we will fully support supply management. It's important to realise, Mr. Speaker, that we're the party that fought to implement supply management, and we're the party that's going to implement supply management, Mr. Speaker. We understand the importance, this government, of the supply management system in this country.
Hear, hear.
Honourable Member for Joliette. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. What we want is full defence of supply management. Last week, the member for Beauce called his former Conservative colleagues hypocrites because he says that in private, they'll tell you that they're against supply management, but they can't or won't talk about it publicly. Well, that sounds like a Conservative idea, Mr. Speaker, but given all the ways that the government has left supply management open to attack, I have to wonder, is there also a rule against speaking out about this on the Liberal side, or are they actually defending farmers?
And I appreciate my honourable colleague's question. I cannot respond for the opposition if they are split on the supply management system. The Conservative Party is split on the supply management system. That is most unfortunate. But I can assure you every member on this side of the House of Commons supports the supply management system. They fully understand. They fully understand. They fully understand how important it is to the agricultural sector. This party fought to implement supply management, and this government will preserve supply management. Thank you, Mr.
Honourable Member for Nunavut.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My question is for the Minister of Intergovernmental Affairs, Northern Affairs and Internal Trade. It's over a year now since the Nutrition North report was issued, and we're still waiting for action. On his recent visit to Iqaluit, the new minister discovered that this was an urgent issue. 5 times I've raised this in the House, and the answer is always, we're taking our time to get it right. I just have to wonder how long it takes this government to get something right. My question is, the Prime Minister has given him specific mandate to fix and expand the program. Will the Minister share what his timeline is to do that? Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Minister of Intergovernmental and Northern Affairs.
Speaker, I want to thank my colleague from Nunavut for his question. As he knows, when I visited Nunavut and the other 2 northern territories, this was a subject of discussion that I had not only with the premiers of the territorial governments, but with Indigenous leaders and business leaders as well. I share my honourable colleague's sense of urgency. My colleague from Labrador, who's the parliamentary secretary, has been working on this. She and I have some specific ideas that will respond to innovative solutions that we've heard from Northerners about a program important to Northerners, and I look forward to working with my colleague in this regard.
Yeah.
Tabling of documents. Order. I'd ask honourable colleagues to assist me by saying shh. And I'd invite colleagues to take their important and valuable conversations into the lobbies or elsewhere. Pursuant to Section 79.22 of the Parliament of Canada Act, it is my duty to present to the House a report from the Parliamentary Budget Officer entitled Extended April 2018 Economic and Fiscal Outlook. Conformément à l'article 79.
Pursuant to Section 79.22 of the Parliament of Canada Act, it is my duty to present to the House a report from the Parliamentary Budget Officer entitled PBO's Approach to Measuring Potential GDP.
Section 79.22 of the Parliament of Canada Act, it is my duty to present to the House a report from the Parliamentary Budget Officer entitled